Okay. Okay, Doc.
Okay, Doc, thank you. So, good morning, everyone. We will have a four-topic lesson for this morning. So, mag-rundown lang ako, total. Review lang naman siya. Hopefully, napag-aralan nyo na to nung college kayo. So, first, ang topic natin na unahin is cellular adaptations of growth and differentiation. So, ang topics under this lesson is, of course, physiologic adaptation and then pathologic. Under that, yung aplasia, hypoplasia, atrophy, hypertrophy, hyperplasia, metaplasia, and dysplasia. Hopefully, familiar na yung mga words sa inyo since discuss naman na ito during your college days. So, first, yung cells, alam naman natin, nag-undergo yan ng cellular changes. Depende kung physiological or pathological. Dito sa picture na to, under normal condition or physiological siya. So, example lang to. Makita nyo dito yung muscles ng kangaroo. So, physiological adaptation siya. For example, di ba, laging nagagamit siya. So, nagkakaroon ng hypertrophy. So, dito natin papasok yung understanding na kapag laging nagagamit yung muscle, for example, nagkakaroon siya ng physiological compensation. Kaya nagkakaroon ng increase in size. So, yung tinatawag natin na hypertrophy, which will be discussed further as we go along the topic. So, for example, ito, si physiologic adaptation ulit. Kapag nabuntis si dog, for example, si bitch, kapag nagkaroon ng coitus or ng pinastad mo yung dog, di ba? Lumalaki normally yung kanilang mga mammary glands. So, another physiological adaptation ulit siya. So, for pathologic naman, example lang to, so just an introduction. For example, ito si liver cirrhosis. Liver cirrhosis is necrosis or damage doon sa liver. Grossly, makita natin dito is nagkaroon siya ng mga granulomatous outgrowths. So, microscopically, ito yung itsura niya. So again, cellular adaptation, it lies between the unstressed and overstressed cells. So as associated sila sa new protein synthesis ng target cell, for example, sa mga heat shock proteins. So, nagpo-produce ng one type of protein to another. So, parang one cell to another. Example na dyan sa metaplasia at saka sa dysplasia. So, it involves a lot of mechanism. Isa na dyan si receptor binding, signal transduction, and etc. So, I will not discuss further in this one because more on sa in-depth ito eh. So, again, sa adaptive changes, meron tayong atrophy. So, just a review, ano ang atrophy? Atrophy is yung decrease ng cell size. Hypertrophy naman is increase in cell size. Hyper from the word hyper, so increase. Trophy from the word trophy, yun yung cell. Dito naman sa hyperplasia, pag sabi yung plasia, sa number. Yung sa trophy is the size. Dun sa plasia is the number. So if you encounter the word hyperplasia or metaplasia or aplasia, lagi niyong titignan yung prefix at saka yung suffix. So if you see hyper, so there's increase plasia, there is increase in number of cells. Ganun din doon sa hypertrophy and atrophy. Sa metaplasia naman, change in cell type. For example, from squamous, from simple squamous, nagiging transitional or nagiging stratified squamous. So yun yung nangyayari sa metaplasia. So let's take a look at this one. Non-neoplastic cell changes siya. So under the hematoxylin A staining. So for example, ito yung normal cell. Kapag nag-undergo ng atrophy yung normal cell, so lumiliit yung size. Ito. Kita nyo naman. And then, kapag nag-undergo naman ng hyperplasia, dumodoble yung number of cells. So from 4, nagiging 6 siya, and so on and so forth. Kapag hypertrophy naman, if this is the normal size of the cell, nag-increase naman yung size ng cell if there is hypertrophy. And then for metaplasia, for example, ang example ko kanina is squamous. Let's say squamous epithelium ito, nagiging cuboidal siya or nagiging round shape. So from one type of cell to another, yun yung si metaplasia. Ito naman si dysplasia, hindi siya per se na adaptive change, sinali ko lang siya, which will be discussed further at the last portion of this topic. So there are two disturbances of growth. Again, aplasia, for example, in this picture, you can see here, wala siyang limb. So there is a failure of the organ to develop. So ito, ibang tawag natin dito, amelia. If you remember sa pato, kapag melia, yun yung sa limbs, absent. So amelia, karoon siya ng aplastic limbs. Dito, forelimb. Ito naman, hypoplasia, there is a development. However, the development is incomplete. So pag sabing hypo, again, decreased development. So yung titingnan natin dito, comparing this one, there is no development. This one naman, there is development, but then again, incomplete siya kapag hypoplasia. So tandaan nyo yun, kapag na-encounter nyo sa board exam, yung mga prefix at suffix, huwag kayong malilito doon kasi yung nagiging cue word nyo doon. So for the aplasia, for example, if it occurs in the embryo or fetus, nangyayari siya intrauterine development. So before pa may panganak yung offspring, development pa lang inside the womb, nag-occur na itong developmental changes na to sa aplasia. So ang mga causes niya, hereditary defects, and then a death of a cell at some critical point doon sa development ng fetus or ng embryo during sa gestation. Sa hypoplasia naman, it differs from atrophy. Sa hypoplasia, may development, kaya lang incomplete. Sa atrophy kasi, more on parang normal size niya, na reach niya yung normal size, however, nag-decrease yung size niya due to certain factors. Maraming factors yan, which will be discussed again later. So, the causes of hypoplasia, one is congenital anomalies. Another one is inadequate blood supply. So, inadequate innervation naman, and then malnutrition. So, we will discuss it, each of the cause. For example, na to, here in this photo, si pulmonary hypoplasia. So, makita natin yung left and right lungs. So, ano ba to? Right or left? Dito sa portion na to, nagkaroon ng hypoplasia. Maaaring congenital anomaly siya kasi hindi naman basta-basta magsishrink ang lungs kapag inadequate ang blood supply. So, more of congenital anomaly ito. Ngayon naman sa atrophy, sabi ko kanina, it differs from hypoplasia because sa atrophy, na-reach niya na yung full size or mature size, kaya lang nagkaroon ng decrease in size because of certain factor. So yung size of the cell, let's take a look at this one. Kung ito yung normal cell or sabihin natin normal tissue, ito yung size niya. Kapag nag-undergo ng atrophy, yan, lumiliit sila, nag-shrink. Although hindi sila dead, still functional pa rin. However, nababawasan na yung function nila. Yan. Ito naman, kapag sa yan. Ay, sorry. Yan. So kapag sa number of cells, nagkakaroon ng normal cell death kapag apoptosis. So kapag sabing apoptosis yan, is a normal physiological condition. Kapag necrosis naman siya, it's a pathological condition wherein there is a decrease of cell number kasi namamatay sila. Due to a pathological condition. Pwedeng infectious yan or pwedeng nutritional. Kapag dito sa atrophy sa cell size, the usual cause of this one is yung loss of innervation and then hormonal supply. Pwede rin siyang loss of blood supply. So let's take a look at this example. So again, shrink in size ng cells sa atrophy from the loss of cell substance. However, again, sabi ko kanina, hindi sila patay. They're still functional, however, the function has decreased. So dito sa physiological atrophy, for example, dito sa newborn, ito, nagkakaroon ng decrease in size doon sa thymus. From the newborn, then paliit ng paliit ng paliit hanggang sa 7 years old siya, sobrang liit na ng thymus kapag naging adult na siya. So ito ay physiological atrophy. Hindi siya lumiit dahil sa sakit, pero lumiit siya because it's a normal part of your physiology. Ito naman, another example. So microscopically, didiscuss natin yung mga microscopic appearances tomorrow. However, papyawan na lang natin. So dito sa physiological atrophy naman, so titignan natin dito sa may left side and then sa right side. Dito sa there is a decrease in cell size and number. So, since physiological siya, it doesn't affect or harm the health of the body of the animal. So, itong slide na to, ito ay uterus. Kung ito, titignan mo, malaki siya. And then, nag-shrink na siya physiologically. For example, sa bitch, di ba, if they're in heat, physiological atrophy nagkakaroon. If they are in heat, for example, lumaki. And then, nagkakaroon ulit ng shrinkage. So, physiological atrophy yun. Kapag natapos na yung estrus period nila. Yan. Another one, si bursa of Fabricius sa chicken. Di ba, malaki siya. Kapag chick pa lang sila. And then, as they grow old, lumiliit, nagsishrink, nagsishrink. Yan. Next, senile atrophy. Pag sinabing senile, it comes with age. So, as we grow older, habang tumatanda tayo, nababawasan or nagdi-decrease yung size ng cell natin. Because maaaring nawawalan na siya ng function, na-loss na yung function, kaya since hindi na siya functional or nabawasan na yung function niya, lumiliit na yung size niya. So, senile atrophy, so part siya ng aging process natin. And then, sa picture, so itong example natin is sa uterus. So, kung ikaw ay, for example, the animal, kapag bata pa siya, in a normal, healthy, and young animal, makita mo pa yung sa uterus niya, makapal pa yung cell, mga cell lining. And then, ito yung lumen. Kapag nag-undergo na ng senile atrophy siya, halos nawawala na. So, integrity ng cell, makita niyo dito yung difference, halos palay na. Diba? Karoon na ng cell loss. Next. Another one, starvation atrophy. Sinabing starvation atrophy, ito yung nutritional. So, for example, here in this picture, a picture of a dog na hindi properly pinapakain. So, since hindi siya nagkakaroon ng proper nutrition, nag-undergo ngayon ng shrinkage yung mga muscles. So, yun, si glycogen and fat na kapag hindi ka kumain, na ang next na mangyayari dyan is ma-force yung liver mo to break down glycogen. And then, until such time na yung mga fat reserves mo, yun na yung magbe-breakdown since wala ka ng proper nutrition na nare-receive until sa pumayat ng pumayat. Another is protein. And then, sa musculature naman yun. And then, mahuhuli dito yung protein sa mga vital organs naman. So, magsistart muna siya, of course, sa mga muscle kasi hindi pa siya masyadong kailangan ng body. So, yung glycogen and fat natin is magfo-focus siya sa mga vital organs. So, ang unang makita natin na mag-undergo ng starvation atrophy is yung mga musculature, the skin, usually the limbs, because again, hindi sila ganun ka-vital as compared doon sa mga internal organs natin. Masyado bang ako mabilis? Sabihin niyo lang, guys,
Okay lang,
kapag
Doc. Okay lang.
sabihin niyo lang po kung masyadong mabilis. So, moving on, dun tayo sa disuse atrophy naman. So, from the word disuse, hindi siya nagagamit. So, pag hindi siya nagagamit, for example, ah, sa mga trauma patient natin, di ba? Kapag nasagasaan yung dog, for example, and then nagkaroon ng fracture. Since nagkaroon ng fracture, most likely hindi siya gagamitin ng dog or ng cat. So since hindi siya ginagamit more often, nagkakaroon ng decrease in size. So that is due to yung inactivity ng muscle. So for example, ito si Kitty Cat. Oh. Karoon siya ng disease atrophy because of a trauma. So pag napilay, nagkaroon ng fracture, yun, hindi na magagamit. Kapag hindi nagamit, nag-decrease in size. So yun yung tinatawag natin na disuse atrophy. So huwag tayong malilito doon. Next, neurotrophic. So kapag nagkaroon ng damage sa nerve, so for example, yung innervation ng muscle na yon, nagkaroon ng damage. So if there's a damage doon sa innervation, most likely is hindi magagamit or hindi magiging functional yung mga muscles doon. If again, sinasabi ko kanina pa ulit-ulit, if hindi nagagamit, kakaroon ng atrophy. Ito is yung causes lang nagiging nagkakaiba. Kung kanina is disuse, ito naman is neurotropic. So nawawalan ng um, nerve supply siya. Kaya hindi nagagamit yung muscle. Next, angiotropic. Sabi ng angio, again, blood supply. Kaya kapag narinig nyo na yung prefix na angio, isipin nyo na lahat na ano dyan is yung blood supply ang nawawala. So, for example, sa mga ischemic organs, first, just like the liver, di ba, heavily vascularized yun. Kapag nawala yung blood supply ng liver, for sure, magkakaroon ng atrophy in one of the lobes or several lobes or the whole liver itself. So, diminished blood supply, yung angiotropic atrophy. Another example naman, dun sa atrophy ng hind limbs, kapag merong parasite, if you're familiar sa mga Strongylosis larvae, di ba? Nag-ano sila, nag-circulate ng mga strongyles natin sa mga blood vessel. So, nagkakaroon ng occlusion. If there's an occlusion for this one, nagkakaroon ng diminished na blood supply. So, nagiging ischemic yung organ. Kapag nag-undergo ng ischemia ang isang organ, nababawasan yung size. Hindi lang size, usually minsan kasama na din yung number dyan. Ito naman sa pressure atrophy, mild mechanical force. Kapag yung mild mechanical force na to is applied for a short period of time, hindi pa siya magkakaroon ng atrophy. However, if the force applied is medyo matagal or chronic na, doon nagkakaroon ng pressure atrophy. So for example, yung mga, the best example dito again, yung mga senile dogs, mga older dogs, and then yung mga animals na trauma, nag-undergo ng trauma or ano ba, fracture again, di ba, they tend to lie down on one side. So yung side na kung saan sila humiga, kung mapapansin nyo, nagkakaroon ng shrinkage ng limbs. Minsan, numinipis pa yung muscle to the point na lumalabas yung bones. So yun yung pressure atrophy. Yan. Ay, hindi dapat kasali itong malnutrition with ischemia. Sorry. Naisali ko dyan. Pero yun yung pressure atrophy, kung na-imagine nyo yung sinasabi ko. Kapag senile na yung dog, hindi na siya makatayo, they tend to stay on one side hanggang sa pag napansin nyo na, kakaroon na ng shrinkage ng size, ng muscles. Tapos, kapag nagkaroon ng shrinkage, minsan, di ba, nagsistick out na yung bones doon. So, yun, nag-undergo ng pressure atrophy. Ito naman, endocrine atrophy. Kapag endocrine atrophy, yung hormones. So, basically, lahat ng mga hormones involved dyan, kapag nagkaroon ng problem doon sa organs na nag-produce ng hormone na yun, or nagkaroon ng disruption sa signaling, kaya hindi na pupunta sa target organ yung hormone, so yung target organ is nagkakaroon din ng atrophy. So sabi dito, loss of endocrine stimulation or from excessive. So pwedeng loss, pwedeng excess production. Kapag overstimulated yung mga hormone-producing organs natin, ah yung target organ is siya yung nagsasuffer from that. So example dito yung sa atrophy ng prostate gland kapag naka-straight, 'di ba? Kapag castrated na siya, wala na yung nagsistimulate doon sa prostate gland na mag-produce ng mga fluid, seminal fluid. So, since wala nang stimulus, nagkakaroon na ng atrophy si prostate gland. Another example, kapag nagkaroon ng ovarectomy. Ovarectomy is yung pagtanggal ng ovary, from the word ovary, ectomy. Ectomy is to remove. So, dun sa uterus, alam naman natin na during estrus, yung production ng estrogen, yun yung nagtitrigger ng um, muscle tone ng uterus. So, if inalis natin yung stimulus, for example, yung ovary, pag inalis natin siya, wala nang magti-trigger or wala nang triggering factor para ma-maintain yung integrity ng uterus. Therefore, nag-shrink yung matress. So, another example of endocrine atrophy. Moving on, hypertrophy naman. So, yung kanina is atrophy, decreased in size. Ito naman is hyper. So, pag sinabing hyper, increased trophy size. So, wala siyang bagong cell, walang additional cell, lumaki lang. So, mga causes nito, physiological, adaptive response, and compensatory hypertrophy. So, let's start with the physiological hypertrophy. So, yung example kanina, during pregnancy. Ito, si uterus na normal, ganito lang yung size niya. Pero kapag nagkaroon na ng coitus or pag nabuntis yung animal during the pregnancy, nagkakaroon ng signal or stimulus from the brain para lumaki yung size ng matres natin. So, alam naman natin yung ating uterus ay muscular organ. So, they tend to increase in size rapidly. So, hindi lang hypertrophy ang nangyayari. Minsan, nag-undergo din ng hyperplasia. So, that's another topic to discuss. Another one, adaptive response. Kapag yung sa development ng muscles sa in a racehorse, for example, ito si adaptive. Kapag lagi niya nagagamit, for example, si racehorse mo is lagi mong ginagamit siya, so everyday tumatakbo na. Nagkakaroon ng increased muscle tone because of the adaptive response. So, lagi siyang na expose sa stimuli. Since everyday siyang na-expose sa stimuli, nagkakaroon na ng adaptation ng cell. So, lumalaki na yung mga cell. For example, ikaw, palagi kang nag-gym, di ba? That's a very good example. If you always go to the gym, yan nagkakaroon ng adaptive response yung mga muscle cells mo, they tend to increase in size. Yan. So, adaptive response sa hypertrophy. And then, another one, compensatory hypertrophy. So, yung compensatory hypertrophy na to nangyayari due to a pathological process. So, pag sabing pathological, ito ay from a disease. So, lahat na ng klaseng disease na pwede, infectious, nutritional, and etc. So, more on pathological. So, although may mga physiological din na involved dito, but more of a pathological process siya. For example, dito sa picture ng kidneys. So, in a healthy adult kidney, dalawa. We have two kidneys or one pair of kidneys. For example, nag-donate ka ng kidney kasi gusto mong bumili ng iPhone. Ngayon, tinanggal yung isang kidney mo, so nagkaroon ng unilateral nephrectomy at isa na lang ang natira. Since isa na lang ang natirang kidney sa body, magdo-double time siya. So yung iisang kidney na yon, magkakaroon siya ng compensatory hypertrophy, mag-increase yung mga cell size niya kasi kailangan niyang mag-compensate doon sa absence nung kabilang kidney. So, mangyari niyan, eto, lumaki na yung size niya para lang ma-fulfill yung role ng dalawang kidney. I hope na-gets natin yung topic. So, yun. Hyperplasia naman, comes hand in hand usually ang hyperplasia at si hypertrophy. So, minsan kapag nag-occur si hypertrophy, nag-occur din si hyperplasia. Or sometimes they occur individually, but most of the time they occur simultaneously. So kapag sabing hyperplasia, nagkakaroon ng increase in the number of cells doon sa organ or tissue. So if there's a increase in the number of cells, expected na rin yung nalalaki yung size niya. So it will get bigger. The organ will get bigger. So ito ay nangyayari due to an increased functional demand. And the cells are capable of mitotic division. Ibig sabihin, the cells tend to multiply rapidly kung merong stimulus o merong stress factor na nangyayari. So causes, meron tayong dalawa, physiological hyperplasia, and then another one, si pathological hyperplasia. Sa physiological, usually hormonal and compensatory lang. So for the pathological, ito, prolonged and repeated irritation, endocrine, nutritional, infectious causes, si wound healing. Sinali ko na lang si wound healing pero actually hindi dapat siya kasali dito. Pero discuss natin later. So, to start, yung hormonal hyperplasia, yung proliferation, pag sabing proliferation, yung pagdami ng cell or pagdami of the glandular epithelium ng mammary gland. Kung naka-encounter na kayo ng pathological process to sa hyperplasia. Doon sa cat, kung aware kayo doon sa mammary hyperplasia ng cat, diba, minsan, most of the time, triggered siya ng hormones. So, nagkakaroon na increase ng size ng mga mammary gland due to the increase of the number of cells. If nakakita na kayo sa mga pag-duty nyo. Dito naman kapag hormonal siya, physiological, kapag nabuntis. So, hindi siya pathological. Physiological lang siya. So, kapag nabuntis yung dog, nagkakaroon ng signal sa brain to stimulate yung paglaki. Pagdami ng size, ay pagdami ng number ng cell doon sa mammary gland in preparation for pregnancy and in preparation for panganak ng animal para doon sa offspring. So, ito. Si hormonal hyperplasia. Another one, si compensatory hyperplasia naman. For example, ito. It occurs when a portion of the tissue is removed. So, kapag tinanggal, for example, si liver, nagkaroon ng lesion. Ito. Kunyari, meron siyang necrotic part. So, nag-alis tayo dito. Since liver is a highly regenerative organ, kapag nag-alis tayo ng portion sa liver, the liver is still capable of healing itself. So, nagkakaroon ng proliferation of cells doon sa part na tinanggalan ng tissue. Yan. For example, ito si lesion, nagkaroon ng surgery, tinapyasan, and then si liver will undergo proliferation of cells. Tapos, ito na, yung dead cells, kakaroon ng regeneration dyan. And then, ito na yung bagong liver. So, yung chin-up off na yan, nagkaroon na siya ng, ano ba, parang tumubo. Kasi nag-compensate na yung Liver, since highly regenerative organ naman siya. So, compensatory hyperplasia yun. Dito naman sa pathological, yon. One is repeated and prolonged irritation. So, the causes either mechanical, chemical, and thermal agents. So, ito, example to, si callus. So, mechanical siya. Kapag laging, tag na dito, laging nagsistay yung dog doon sa position na yon, for example, sa elbow niya, nagkakaroon ng increase in the number of skin cells dito. So, nagkakaroon ng keratinocyte dito, increase in keratinocytes. So, just to compensate mo yung palaging nagkakaroon ng pressure doon sa area na yun. Hindi lang dito sa elbows, usually meron din sa stifle. And doon sa mga parts na usual na kung saan humihiga yung dogs. So, that is due to your repeated and prolonged irritation. So another one, endocrine disturbances, again, endocrine hormonal. Yung example natin kanina is yung physiological na kapag naka-straight, nagkakaroon ng hypoplasia. Dito naman sa hyperplasia na pathologic, for example, sa mga prostate glands ng mga old dogs. Yan. Kung ito yung normal na prostate, ito naman yung enlarged na prostate. Usually pathological process ang nangyayari dito. Yan. Nutritional disturbance. So kapag nutritional disturbance, for example, deficient siya ng iodine dito sa horse, nagkakaroon ng goiter. Kapag alam naman natin na if we lack iodine, di ba? Nagko-compensate yung sa thyroid gland. Since nagko-compensate yung ating thyroid gland, nag-increase yung cells niya. So yun yung nag-occur as goiter. Dito naman sa vitamin A deficiency, yung keratinization ng esophagus ng chicken, kung nakakita na kayo nun. Kapag kulang sa vitamin A or deficient sa vitamin A, kapag na-necropsy niyo yung chicken, may ganito, nagkakaroon ng hyperkeratinization doon sa esophagus, kung nakita na kayo nun. And then last one, infectious causes. So ito yung apat na main plus yung isa which is wound healing. So this is sa infectious causes. Example sa pox viruses. So nagkakaroon ng hyperplasia ng epithelium, most especially sa may mucosa ng oral cavity. So sa lips, minsan up to the extent ng nose and then sa loob ng gums. So dito sa ORF or contagious eczema, for example. So yung ORF lesion, dito, makita natin grossly. Si grossly, makita natin dito yung lips ng sheep ba to? Ayan, ng sheep. Ayan. Nagkakaroon ng proliferation ng cells dyan. Kaya nagkakaroon ng hyperkeratinization ulit dyan. So ito, crust ito. And then dito naman sa image B, microscopic lesion na siya. So, makita mo yung increase ng number of cells dito. Sa day 3 tomorrow or day 4, I will teach you how to interpret the lesion based on the microscopic. For now, ito na lang muna ang papakita ko. Ito yung mga increased number of cells. Ito makita niyo dito. Yan, mga keratinocytes. Yan. Due to a pathological process. Another one, wart virus. So, alam naman natin yung warts are caused by a virus called papillomavirus. So, it occurs due to increased sensitivity of cells to normal level of growth factors. So, yung common skin wart, di ba, nagkakaroon ng outgrowth, nagkakaroon ng proliferation dito due to a stimulus produced by yung papillomavirus. Ito. The last one is the wound healing. Ito, it's not actually part of the pathological hyperplasia, but I added it na lang. So, important response siya of the connective tissue in wound healing. Di ba pag nasugat ka, kapag nag-heal na yung wound, nagpo-form ng scab. So, yung formation ng scab na yun is from yung production ng fibrins and other inflammatory cells. Doon nagkakaroon ng tawag na dito. Kung natapos nyo na yung topic kahapon sa inflammation, diba nagkakaroon ng proliferation ng mga inflammatory cells doon. So from that point on, magti-trigger siya ng granulation, tissue granulation. So yung tissue granulation na yun, triggering factor yun to produce cells. So nag-increase yung production ng cells na yun to cover up yung wound. So moving on, metaplasia. So a reversible change in which one adult cell type is replaced by another cell type. For example, from squamous epithelium, napalitan siya ng columnar or cuboidal cell. Usually, it occurs sa mga tumors, di ba? Kasi from one cell to another type of cell. Usually sa mga tumors yun. Causes niya, ito, si repeated and prolonged irritation, and then nutritional disturbance, and then endocrine. So dito sa example, dito sa picture, from columnar epithelium, nag-change siya ng squamous. So ito yung sinasabi natin metaplasia, metaplastic changes. Yan, from one cell type to another cell type. Dito sa prolonged irritation, ito yung mga lungworm. So, you can see here the adult lungworm sa may bronchi or sa mga bronchus. So, yung stratified squamous epithelium niya, napapalitan siya ng another type of cell. So, ito ay due to prolonged occurrence nitong mga worm na to. So, nai-irritate yung epithelium ng bronchi, mag-change siya from stratified, minsan nagiging transitional. Yan. Next one, nutritional disturbance. Yan. Kapag nutritional siya, for example, sa vocal fold ng rats. Metaplasia. Sa vocal folds. So, sa stratified squamous epithelium siya, napapalitan siya ng cuboidal. Here sa part na to. Yan. Napalitan siya ng cuboidal, kung na-imagine nyo. Yan. Another one, endocrine disturbance. Sa mga nabanggit ko kanina, usually na metaplastic changes, nakikita siya sa mga tumor cells. So yung mga tumor cells natin, actually they are normal cells before, kaso nag-i-increase yung mitosis, yung rate ng mitosis niya. Pag nag-increase yung rate ng mitosis, nag-i-increase din yung number of cells. Pero yung nag-increase ng number of cells na yun is hindi siya yung original type of cell. For example, kung squamous epithelium dati, nag-change into cuboidal and then nagkaroon ng increase in mitotic division. So, lumalaki ng lumalaki. Yun yung ang tawag nito, nature ng mga tumor. Dysplasia. So, from the word disordered. So, dysplasia. So, disordered form. They are non-neoplastic, but some are neoplastic. So, mainly sa epithelial cells siya. So, mga epithelial cells natin is nasa lining ng skin and tubular organs. So, mostly doon nagkakaroon. And then they have lost in the uniformity of individual cells. Tapos nagkakaroon din ng loss of architectural orientation. For example, ito. Kung ito ang normal appearance ng cell, nagkakaroon siya ng ito, kakaroon ng deformity. Kumbaga, yung shape niya, kapag rectangle sana, is nagkakaroon ng abstract shape. Yan. So, ito yung dysplasia. Sa mga dysplastic na stratified squamous epithelium, kung makita natin dito, ito yung mga normal na epithelial cell. Ito naman yung abnormal. So, hindi siya na-confine doon sa basal layers. Pero hindi, kung titignan mo siya, hindi siya organized. Kung dito sa normal na squamous cell, organized yung layers, organized din yung itsura. Kapag sa dysplastic cell, they are disorganized. Hindi sila para-pareho, iba-iba yung shape, iba-iba halos din yung sizes. Tapos yung orientation nila halos iba-iba din. Yan. Ito, the difference, kung if this is the normal epithelium, hyperplastic, dumami siya. Kita mo siya? Yan. Pag dysplastic naman, ito, dumami siya pero disorganized. Nabanggit natin kanina na neoplastic siya. Pero sa mga dysplastic cells na iba, sometimes nagli-lead sa cancer. So, sabi niya dito, when dysplastic changes are marked, involve the entire thickness of the epithelium, the lesion is referred to as carcinoma in situ. So, pag sabing narinig niyo na yung word na carcinoma, is tumor na siya. Isipin natin is a malignant tumor, so it's cancerous. Yan, sa mga dysplastic cell. For example, to si cervical dysplasia. So, abnormal cell growth siya doon sa cervix. Kung ito yung normal cell growth sa cervix, sa mga dysplastic uterus naman, ito makita natin disorganized or disorientation ng mga cells. Ito yung mild, moderate, severe na siya. So, ito yung cancerous. Yan. Hip dysplasia naman. Ito is yung wag niyo palang interchange yung hip dysplasia at sa luxation lang. Diba? Dito kasi, for example, sa mga German Shepherd, they are predisposed to this one. Dahil sa breed nila, di ba, sila ay prone sa hip dysplasia. Kung ano, hindi siya pareho sa luxation. Although, si luxation kasi is lumabas from the socket ng acetabulum, si dysplasia is yung itsura mismo nung bone. So, dito sa femur head is deformed during the development na yan. Deformed yung head ng kanyang femur and then shallow yung hip socket. Kaya lumalabas. Hindi sila nagdidikit, lumalabas siya. Kaya yung aso nagpipilay or minsan hindi pa makalakad. Although same sila ng manifestation sa luxation, but they're not the same. So wag niyong pag-interchange si hip, femoral luxation tsaka si hip dysplasia. Yan. Hip dysplasia kasi is from the development itself. Yung isa is from caused by a trauma. So yun, dysplasia is not an adoptive response, though sinali ko siya kasi closely related siya sa hyperplasia. Sometimes we call that yung atypical hyperplasia. So tandaan nyo to, atypical hyperplasia. Si dysplasia. And in both cervix and the respiratory tract, si dysplasia is strongly implicated as a precursor of cancer. Again, small dysplastic cells, usually they are non-neoplastic, but some may lead to cancer or some are cancerous. But hindi lahat yun ay cancerous, some lang. So, moving on to the next topic. Sorry kung medyo mabilis. Moving on to the next topic. Ito, sa neoplasia, since na-discuss natin, papyaw si neoplasia sa mga neoplastic cells. Another na ano is review na lang to. Medyo Hindi siya gano'n ka-in-depth. So, sa neoplasm, sa old definition by term, abnormal mass of tissue growth of which exceeds and is uncoordinated with normal tissue in the body. So, nagpa-persist siya in the same excessive manner when the stimulus evoking the change is removed. Sorry. So, from the word neo or new, plasia, growth. So, pag nabasa nyo na si word na plasia, grow siya. So, neo, plasia, new growth. So, sa mga neoplasm, they are tumor, either they're benign or they are malignant. Basta nagkakaroon ng abnormal masses of tissue. Yun. Dito naman sa current definition, from the old definition kanina, ito yung current. So, disorder of cell growth. So, natitrigger siya by series of mutation ng cells affecting a single cell and its clonal progeny. So, dito, it arises from a single cell hanggang sa mag-mutate. For example, si epithelial or mesenchymal cell, nagme-mutate yun to produce a cancerous type or a tumorous type of a cell. So, nagkakaroon ng survival and growth. So, nagsisurvive yung mga cancerous cell na to and then they grow, continuously grow kasi mataas yung mitotic division nila. Mabilis nila magpadami. So, nagkakaroon ng proliferation. Again, from the word proliferation, pagdami of the abnormal cells, which is independent of the physiological growth ng stimuli. So, autonomous nature to. Example ng mga autonomous nature is yung mga tumor of the glands doon sa mammary. So, yun ay due to the incapability of the tumor cell to secrete and sense. So, sa mga autonomous to ha, they have the ability to secrete and sense growth factors. So, self-sustained ito. Pag sinabing self-sustained, hindi na kailangan ng stimuli from others kasi yung stimulus is nandun na mismo sa organ. So, sustained sila ng autocrine and paracrine secretion. So, review lang yung autocrine. So, signaling siya ng cell. So, nagsisecrete yung signal na yon doon mismo sa organ na yon. So, same binding receptor on the same cell. Yung same cell na yun nagpo-produce, doon din siya magbabind. Yung paracrine, from the word para, beside or katabi. So,
Sorry,
yung,
Doc. Wait lang, Doc. Yung PowerPoint mo, Doc,
ay,
naka-freeze sa thank you yung last. Hindi mo ata,
ay,
i-unshare mo
sorry,
na
Doc.
lang tong sa Doc, tas i-reshare yung ano.
Okay, Doc, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. Unshare, stop share. Wait lang. Paano ba to? Okay na, Doc? Okay na ba, Doc? Hello, Doc. Okay na po ba?
Okay
Ulitin
na
ko.
po, Doc. Thank you, thank
Ah,
you.
sorry. Ayun. So, dito na tayo sa, ano na lang, balik tayo dito sa neoplasia. So, from the word neoplasia, new or new growth. So, nagkakaroon na abnormal masses of tissue. So, yan. Ito yung current definition. Sorry, yung kanina. Ito, nandito na pala ako. Dito sa proliferation of abnormal cells, which is independent of physiological growth stimuli, yung sasabi ko na autonomous nature. Si autonomous nature, example niya, si tumor ng mammary glands. Si mammary gland, di ba, they are capable of secreting and sensing its own production. So, itong mammary gland, they are sustained usually by autocrine and paracrine secretion. So, pag sinabing autocrine, so this is a form of a cell signaling in which yung cell Siya mismo yung nagsisecrete ng hormone or yung chemical messenger. At yung chemical messenger na yun or hormone na yun is magbabind on the same cell. And then another, yung si paracrine, si para beside or from another organ. So yung secretion ng another organ na yun is magkakaroon ng communication doon sa cell involved, doon sa target organ involved, and then nagkakaroon ng changes or pwedeng mag-induce ng change yun doon sa katabing cell. For example, doon sa kung familiar kayo sa positive and negative response and sa endocrinology, di ba? Yung from um, nakalimutan ko na yun. ACTH, di ba, nagtitrigger siya ng response doon sa ovary to produce, to stimulate yung production ng FSH. Ganon yung paracrine secretion. Ganon. So again, si mammary tumor has both autocrine and paracrine secretion. So sa types of tumors naman tayo, there are two types of tumors. One is the benign, two is the malignant. So sa benign, well-differentiated yung mga cell doon and it remains localized. So pag sabing remains localized, doon lang sa area na yun, isang area lang siya and hindi siya nagme-metastasize o hindi siya dumadami. Doon naman sa malignant, poorly differentiated yung cell. So hindi mo na ma-identify kung squamous ba siya or ano kasi wala na siyang differentiation eh. Wala na siyang uniformity. And they're often deadly because they metastasize. Pag sinabing metastasize, they tend to infect other organs. So, kumakalat siya sa body. So, just an overview of the difference between yung benign at saka malignant. Sa mga growth limits nila, si benign circumscribed or covered. So, usually doon lang sa localized area na yon yung growth limits nila. Kasi malignant naman unrestricted. So, tuloy-tuloy lang yung kanyang growth. And then yung growth rate, expansion. So kapag sa may expansion, lumalaki yung size lang doon sa certain area na yon kay benign. Doon naman sa growth rate kay malignant, invasion. So, na-invade niya yung ibang organs. Differentiation, good differentiation again. Pag sabing good differentiation, na-differentiate mo pang na squamous cell siya, alam mong squamous siya, kasi nakikita mong well-differentiated sila. Squamous, columnar, ganon. Kapag si malignant naman is anaplastic cell. Pag sabi mong anaplastic, hindi siya ma-differentiate kung anong klaseng cell yun. So, poorly differentiated yun. So, kapag nakita mo na yung anaplastic cells, usually they are the hallmark of malignancy. So, kapag nakita mo na yan, usually kapag sa mga biopsy slides, ano na yun? Malignant tumor na yun. So, hallmark na siya. Metastasis naman, kay benign, absent siya. So, walang metastasis or walang invasion from one organ to another organ. However, kay malignant, frequent or madalas nag-occur yung metastasis. And then recurrence on surgery, kapag benign, kapag once na tinanggal mo yung tumor, localized tumor na yon, usually wala nang recurrence. So nagre-resolve na siya. However, si malignant, once na nagalaw mo siya, for example, si squamous cell carcinoma, di ba? Once na nagalaw mo yun, kapag hindi mo siya nahiwa, yung border, kapag may naiwan doon na metaplastic cell, is they still tend to proliferate, mag-i-increase at mag-i-increase ang kakaroon ng recurrence ng tumor. Yun yung difference nila kay benign. Microscopic features naman, kung ano yung tissue origin, for example, kung squamous cell ang tissue origin ng tumor na yun, ang makikita mong cell pa rin ay squamous. Kapag kay malignant naman, kapag squamous ang kanyang tissue origin, nagkakaroon ng ibang itsura. Minsan napapalitan siya ng parang cuboidal, sabihin na natin mga ganun. So, poor resemblance. So, kung square yung cell of origin niya, let's say sabihin na natin nagiging round naman kapag malignant. Ganun. Pleomorphism. Pag sabing pleomorphism or pleomorphic cells, kakaroon ng variation ng size at shape. So, hindi pare-pareho yung size ng shape. Kapag sa benign, walang pleomorphism. So, uniform. Kapag sa malignant naman, merong pleomorphism. Iba-iba yung size, iba-iba yung shape, gano'n. Pag nakita mo na yun, again, it's another hallmark of cancerous tumor. Tumor giant cells, absent, walang tumor giant cells sa benign. However, sa malignant present, madaming tumor giant cell doon sa malignant tumors. Ito yung difference nila. Another one. Yung sa mitosis pala, pag sa benign, hindi siya ganun kataas yung mitosis or yung mitotic rate. So, mabagal lang yung pag-cell divide or yung cell division. As compared sa malignant kasi mataas ang rate ng mitosis. So, from one cell, magiging dalawa, tatlo, apat. Ganun kabilis. Sa components of tumor naman tayo. So, there are two basic components. So, tandaan natin, parenchyma, stroma. Pag sabing parenchyma, they are made of neoplastic cells itself, yung organ mismo. Yung sa stroma naman is yung kailangan ng neoplastic cell in order for it to grow. Yun yung mga blood vessel, tsaka connective tissue. Yun. Ito mga to, they are needed by the tumor cells for nutritional support and waste removal. So, basic components siya. General appearance naman, ito, si epithelial at si mesenchymal. Sa tumor categories, we have two. We have epithelial and mesenchymal. So generally, sa size, malalaki yung sa epithelial cell. Sa mesenchymal origin naman, maliliit, small to medium. Tapos yung cell shape, usually they are round to polygonal sa epithelial. Sa mesenchymal naman, they are elongated to spindle shape. So pag nakita mo yung ganitong shape, alam mo nang mesenchymal origin to. Pero pag mga ganito, for example sa mga round cell tumor, kapag nakita na kayo ng slide ng TVT, di ba round cell sila? So, yun, siya ay epithelial origin. Yan. Cellularity naman of aspirates, usually mataas na kukuha nating cells. Kapag nag-FNA tayo, if you have already tried yung fine needle aspirate, kapag nag-aspirate tayo doon sa mga round cell tumor, mataas ang nakukuha nating number of cells. As compared mo sa mga mesenchymal, pa isa-isa lang. Clumps or clusters, common ba siya sa epithelial cells? Yes. Usually, since mataas ang kanyang cellularity, clusters na siya. Yung appearance in clusters are very common. Sa mesenchymal naman, since very low ang kanyang cellularity sa aspirates, usually walang clusters, wala ring clumps na nakikita sa slide. Nomenclature. Pag sabing nomenclature, naming, how do we name a tumor? First, we compare sa mesenchymal at saka sa epithelial origin. Ngayon, kapag benign tumor, pag narinig mo yung word na oma, automatically, benign siya. Oma, benign. Kung ito yung suffix na nakita natin. So, for example, dito sa mesenchymal tissue, kapag mesenchymal tumors pala, usually sila ay galing sa mga connective tissue. So, these are basically connective tissue tumors sa mga mesenchymal origin. So, ito yung mga organs sa adipocytes, sa myoblasts, chondroblasts, sa endothelium, mga ganun. Fibroblasts, they are connective tissues. They're connective tissue tumors kapag si mesenchymal. So, dito si fibroblast. Kapag si fibroblast, nagkaroon ng tumorous growth, siya ay si fibroma. So, benign. Benign tumor of the fibroblast, fibroma. Sa cartilage naman, chondroma. Sa smooth muscle, leiomyoma. Kapag skeletal muscle, rhabdo. So, when it comes sa mga muscle cells, kapag narinig mo na yung rhabdo, nung nagre-review ako, automatically, naisip ko na, ito, skeletal muscle na to. Yan. And adipocyte lipoma. So, ito yung mga benign mesenchymal tumors. Kapag epithelial origin naman, kapag glandular siya, adenoma. Kapag epithelium, papilloma. I mean, stratified squamous epithelium, papilloma siya. For example, ito, sebaceous gland siya ng dog. So, ito ay benign tumor of the sebaceous gland. So, nagkakaroon ng, let's see the cell, meron siyang small nuclei. Ito yung nucleus and foamy cytoplasm. Foamy, kapag nagde-describe tayo ng lesion, pahapyaw lang to for the topic tomorrow. Pag nagde-describe tayo ng lesion, we use usually layman's term sa description of the lesion. For example, dito, foamy. So, mukha siyang bubbles. Pag naglalaba, di ba yung mga suds and bubbles, ganito yung itsura niya, foamy. Yung kanyang cytoplasm. Tapos, since siya ay benign, makita mo na very distinct yung kanyang borders. And they are usually in cluster magkakasama. Yan. So, well-differentiated siya. Pag sabing well-differentiated, halos pare-pareho yung cell. Kapag ganito yung nakita mo sa slide, alam mo na ay suspected benign. Benign tumor na siya. Dito naman sa papilloma, so may macroscopically or grossly, nagkakaroon siya ng projection na finger-like. Ito. Para siyang, keratinized cells, outgrowth. Yun, ito si papilloma. Sa malignant tumors naman, pag nakita natin yung word o yung suffix na sarcoma and carcinoma. Sarcoma and carcinoma, automatically, they are malignant tumors na. So, sa mesenchymal origin, again, kapag mesenchymal, sila ay tumors ng mga connective tissues. For example, si fibroblast, fibrosarcoma, cartilage, chondrosarcoma, and so on and so forth. Kapag naman epithelial origin, glandular epithelium sa mga glands, carcinoma. Adeno, the word adeno, gland, carcinoma, ito yung malignant tumor of the gland. For example, whatever gland is that. Leukemia, blood-forming cell, lymphoma, lymphoid cells. Example, ito, si feline injection site associated sarcoma. Kung familiar kayo doon, kaya hindi tayo nagbago na yung protocol natin sa pagbabakuna sa cats. Kung familiar kayo doon or if pinapractice sa mga clinic na pinagdudutihan nyo or napagjutihan nyo, usually dinidiscourage na siya sa may in between shoulder blades, di ba? May mga other injection sites for subcutaneous injection ng vaccines because of this one, feline injection site associated sarcoma or FIS. So, usually, nag-occur siya because nagkakaroon ng triggering factor or stimulus doon sa may connective tissue para mag-produce ng malignant cells. So, yun. Nagkakaroon ng spindle. For example, ito. Spindle shape. Tapos mag-isa lang siya. Kung di man siya mag-isa, may mga kasama siya, pero hindi sila in cluster since they are mesenchymal origin. So ngayon, yung pleomorphism halos very common ang pleomorphism kasi hindi sila pare-pareho ng itsura. Yan. Dito, yung nuclei, nagkakaroon ng increase in the size of nucleus, hindi lang sa nucleus, pati sa cytoplasm. Yan. So, pleomorphism ito. Yan. So, sa grading and staging naman tayo, how do we grade a tumor? So, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. May tawag dito sa grading which will be discussed further. So, pag grade 1, well-differentiated yung tumor. Usually, it occurs sa mga benign. So, well-differentiated, makikita mo again, pare-pareho ba sila? Iba-iba ba? Ganun. Grade 2, moderately, medyo may similarities pa din sila. Pero, they're starting to have different features ng cells. Sa grade 3 naman, low differentiation. Hindi mo na halos ma-differentiate yung type ng cell. And then sa grade 4, poorly differentiated. Wala na talaga silang pagkakakilanlan. Kumbaga, iba-iba na. Yan. And then there are methods to quantify yung aggressiveness ng tumor or ng neoplasm. So, we base it sa grade and then sa stage. Kapag sa grade, tayo nag-base yung degree ng differentiation or yung pagkakapare-pareho or pagkakaiba ng mga cells. Kapag sa stage naman is yung size ng primary lesion at saka yung capability to spread. So, sa grading system, there are 4 grading system na nagagamit. Sa mga 2 tiers, 2-tier system, ito yung mga low-grade tumor, mga high-end high-grade tumors. Kung narinig nyo na yung term na low-grade tumor, high-grade tumor, ganun. Kapag 3-tier, yun na yung kakaroon ng grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. So sa 2-tier, si Camus, si Paes, si Cupel. Kapag sa 3-tier naman, si Patnaik, yun yung may grade 1, 2, and 3. Depende doon sa differentiation ng cell. So first, nung tayo kay Camus, example dito si mast cell tumor. So si mast cell tumors, they are considered as high grade. So kung ma-consider lang natin siya if they meet itong 2 criteria na to. One is poor granulation. And then number 2 is presence of the following features. Kapag mataas yung mitotic figures, usually nasa 4 to 5 or 5 to 7 per high power field na mitotic figures. Familiar naman siguro tayo sa mitotic figures. Andyan si anaphase, telophase. Makita niyo siya mismo doon sa cell. And then if the cells are binucleated or multinucleated, if there are nuclear pleomorphism, and then anisokaryosis. Yun. So if na-meet nung tumor, yung criteria na to, they are considered as high grade. Let's take a look at this one. Ito ay si low grade. So heavily granulated cells from a low grade mast cell tumor. From the figure left figure, ito. Very distinct ang kanyang border. So meron pa rin silang halos similarity, hindi pa ganun ka taas yung kanyang pleomorphism. So low grade pa rin siya. Yung nucleus or yung detail ng mga nucleus, very distinct pa rin. Ito. And usually hindi sila widespread. Some cells, they appear as like this one. Lighter yung kanyang cytoplasm. Ito. Medyo lighter as compared to this one. But they are both low grade. Low grade tumor sila. Kasi meron silang pagkakakilanlan pa rin. Walang pleomorphism. Yun. And hindi nila na-meet yung criteria for a high grade tumor. Kay Camus naman, ay Camus pa rin to. So, ito ay high-grade tumor. Paano natin masabing high-grade tumor siya? Kasi nagkakaroon ng pleomorphism. Tapos poorly granulated sila. Tingnan mo. Yung mga granules, halos di mo na makita, halos iba-iba na rin yung itsura.
Or active hydrogen alkaline water.
So ito, considered as high-grade tumor because na-meet niya na yung dalawang two factors, na-meet niya na yon. So, pwede natin siyang ma-consider as high-grade tumor. Yung mga to, cytoplasm, makikita nyo as compared to this one, ito heavily granulated siya. Ito halos wala ng granulation. Poor granulation. Yan. So, pwede na natin siya i-consider as high-grade tumor. Next, si PAES, grading system. Kay mast cell tumor pa rin tayo. So, evaluation of ng fibroblasts at saka collagen fibers. Tapos, yung eliminating binucleated cells and nuclear pleomorphism. So, fibroblasts and collagen fibers are both common findings. So, kapag nakita natin na ito, si fibroblast at collagen, usually, di ba, sila yung mga connective tissue sa mga basement membranes. So, common siya sa mga low-grade tumors. Pag nakita natin to, tingnan natin sa example. Ito, for example, this one, ito ay mga fibroblast. So, elongated ang kanilang shape. Indistinct yung kanilang cytoplasmic border. Sa mga low-grade tumor to. So, mesenchymal origin kasi sa fibroblast siya. Di ba? Ito. Medyo pare-pareho pa rin naman sila. And then presence of fibroblasts. So, pwede natin siya i-consider sa PAES grading system. Yan. Ito, sa QPEL naman. Dito sa system na to, consider mo lang na high grade ang isang tumor if it includes the following characteristics. First, mataas yung mitotic figure. Usually, sa per high power field, makita natin 7 mitotic figures. More than 3 na multinucleated cells, at least 3 nucleus sa isang cell. And then, 3, more than 3 bizarre looking nuclei or nucleus. And then, karyomegaly. Pag sabing karyomegaly, karyo, nucleus, megaly, increase in size. Lumaki yung kanyang nucleus. So, if na-meet niya na yung 4 na criteria na to, so pwede natin siyang i-consider as high-grade tumor according kay QPEL. Ito naman sa PATNIC, 3-tier system. So, ito yung sasabi kanina, grade 1, 2, and 3. Sa histologic features niya, monomorphic cells, mitotic figures. So, pag sinabi monomorphic, pare-pareho lang. Walang mitosis nakikita, so walang cell division kapag grade 1. Grade 2 tumor, medyo moderate or medyo present pero kaunti lang. May pleomorphism, and then yung mitosis or mitotic figures per high power field is 0 to 2. Kapag grade 3, ito na yung mataas. Ibig sabihin, high-grade tumor to. So, dominantly pleomorphic cells. So, iba-iba na yung itsura ng mga cells. Tatlo, 3 to 6 mitotic figures na siya. Staging, to stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 kapag TNM. Kapag DUX naman, A, B, C, and D. Sa TNM staging system, si T, it features ng tumor at the primary site. For example, T1, T2, T3, describe yung size ng primary tumor. Kapag yung N, regional lymph node, kung ma-involve ba na regional lymph node. So, N0, N1, N2 indicate progressively advancing lymph node advancement. N0 kapag walang lymph node na involved. N1 kapag may involve pero moderate or mild. N2 kapag severe yung kanyang lymph node involvement. Kapag T1, T2, T3 pala, pag T1 medyo maliit, mas malaki, and then malaki. Metastasis, yung M0 kapag walang metastasis, MI kapag may metastasis, or kapag they're capable of infecting other organs. Yan. Sa ducts naman, to for example, si bowel, sa may large intestine. Sabihin natin sa rectum siya. Si tumor, sa ducts A, dito lang siya nakalocate. Walang involvement si muscle, wala siyang involvement sa outer lining. Sa ducts B, meron na siyang involvement sa inner lining at saka sa muscle. And then sa ducts C, bukod sa involvement niya dito hanggang sa outer lining, meron na siyang involvement ng lymph nodes. At least isang lymph node na malapit. And ducts D, yung tumor has spread sa other parts of the body. So, mataas na yung metastasis niya. So, pwede mo na siyang consider as stage 4 kapag ang involved na organ is hindi lang, for example, si liver, meron na siyang involvement sa lungs, sa heart, sa spleen. So, stage 4 na siya, according kay Duke. So, sa hallmark ng cancer, sa cancer pala, malignant growth resulting from uncontrolled cell division. So, kaya natin tinitignan yung cell mitosis dito. Kasi, doon natin makakategorize yung abnormal growth kung masyadong mataas or mababa lang. Carcinogens, mutation, monoclonality, self-explanatory. Thank you. So, moving on to the next topic. Stop share ko ulit. Yan. Next topic. Pathogenesis of infectious diseases. So sa mga, ito is very overview lang siya kasi na-discuss nyo na to sa micro for sure. Yung pathogenesis na sinasabi natin is yung kung paano nagde-develop yung disease. Kung paano lang nag-develop yung sakit. Yan. So as an overview, there are few categories of pathogenic diseases, ay pathogens, or those that are capable of producing diseases. So si virus, mycoplasma, chlamydia, rickettsia, although these are already classified as bacteria, pero pinaghiwalay pa rin. And then bacteria, mycobacteria, fungi, protozoa, helminths. May isa pa dito, si prion. So those are infectious agents na i-discuss natin dito. So as an overview, si prions, na sinasabi ko kanina, si prions, dati they are considered as viruses. However, lately, na-consider na siya as not a virus but as a protein. So these proteins, they lack nucleic acid, wala silang RNA, wala rin silang DNA, kaya inalis nila sa category of viruses. They do not produce any inflammatory response or any immune reaction sa hosts. So, these are unconventional agents. And since nucleic acid lang sila, they are resistant sa mga, hindi sila easily inactivated by sa mga ginagamit nating disinfectants. Diba, yung mga disinfectants natin, usually, they kill viruses and bacteria. However, resistant siyempre yan sa mga to. Sa example ng mga prions, if you are familiar, si mad cow. Si mad cow disease, other term niya si bovine, spongiform, encephalopathy. So yung disease na ito nag-occur kay cattle. So ang etiology, ni bovine spongiform encephalopathy ay prion. So, another one, scrapie naman kapag sa sheep. And then transmissible feline encephalopathy kay cat. Sa humans, we also have prions, si Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, and then si Kuru, which is associated sa human cannibalism. Before kasi, di ba, ancient times, ancient times, kumakain pa yung mga tao ng kapwa nila tao. So from that point, doon na ipapasa yung nucleic acid na to or yung prion na to until such time na dumami yung cases ng kuro because of yung cannibalism. Sa Creutzfeldt-Jakob naman, ito yung nagkakaroon lang ng ganito yung tao, usually associated siya sa mga patients na nakaka-receive ng corneal transplants. So, dumadami, nag-i-increase yung number ng nucleic acid na to or prions na to once na na-implant na yung corneal cornea doon sa recipient. So, yung mechanism or yung pathogenesis, kung paano siya nagpo-produce ng disease. So, there are 4 fundamental concepts. One is wala silang RNA, DNA. And since wala silang RNA and DNA, mahirap silang eradicate so they can easily infect organs, especially sa brain. Very susceptible yung brain for prions. And diseases, they manifest as infectious, sporadic, or as a genetic disorder. And prions, they result from accumulation of abnormally folded form of protein. Sabi ko kanina, these are not viruses, but they are proteins. So prions are just proteins. Although si virus, they're also protein. However, meron silang RNA or DNA. Itong si prion is wala, just a protein lang. And then pathogenic prions can have a variety of conformation. So usually associated siya sa specific disease. So si BSE or si bovine spongiform encephalopathy, specific lang siya for cattle. Si scrapie, specific lang din siya for sheep and so on and so forth. Next, virus naman. Sa viruses, there are mechanism of virus-induced injury. For sure, na-discuss din ito sa micro nyo. So, pahapyawan lang natin. Yung viruses is nagkakos ng damage by entering the cell. So, after they enter the cell, they replicate or they multiply. After they multiply, they infect yung tissue. So, from that point on, there is attachment, penetration, and then replication. So, itong mga to is yung mga mechanism of how the virus induce an injury to a cell or to a tissue. So, wait lang, dito tayo sa attachment muna. So, upon exposure, for example, sa parvo, upon exposure of the virus from the environment, so pag pumasok na siya sa body, so may entry yung virus, upon entry, there is attachment. So, mag-a-attach ngayon si viral cell doon sa host cell. So, yung mga viruses na to, nagbabind siya doon sa receptors ng host cell, di ba? Kung matandaan nyo yun. Doon sa inyong viro. Yan. So, after they attach, once na-attach siya or nag-bind na si virus doon sa receptor cell, so kukuha na siya ng portion ng DNA or RNA ng host cell membrane. So, after that, i-replicate niya na yun. I-replicate. So, doon pala sa penetration and then sa attachment, nagkakaroon ng translocation and then fusion and then receptor-mediated endocytosis. So, pag sinabing endocytosis, papasok na siya. Hindi niya i-engulf. Kumbaga, papasok siya sa loob ng cell and then i-invade niya yon. Then after that, magmumultiply na siya. So, i-multiply niya na yung transcribed and folded proteins hanggang sa mag-produce ng bagong virus. So after nila invade yung host cell, produce ng bagong virus, again, magre-repeat lang yung process. Mag-invade ulit sila ng panibagong cell, and then they attach, they bind, they penetrate, and then they replicate. After replication, doon nagkakaroon na ng damage. So ito yung viruses that kills host cell. So nagkakause ng tissue damage in several ways. Isa is, number one is they inhibit host cell DNA and RNA protein synthesis. So nasa stop yung synthesis ng DNA at saka ng RNA ng host cell. And then second, viral proteins, they enter the host cell. So once they enter, namamatay yung host cell due to yung sa kanilang replication. And then number three, replicate. And then after that, they are recognized by the immune system. So once na na-recognize sila ng immune system, nagkakaroon na ngayon ng triggering factor ng immune system to produce yung mga cytotoxic cells, di ba? Pag merong overproduction ng cytotoxic cells, sinisira niya na yung pati yung cell mismo ng host. And then yung mga number 5, damage cells, making it susceptible to bacterial infection. Kaya lagi tayong nagbibigay ng mga antibiotics sa mga patient na may viral infection because mas nagiging susceptible sila due to yung damage caused by the viruses. And then cell lysis, kakaroon ng necrosis ng cells. And then sa slow and latent viral infections naman. So nag-occur to sa mga severe and progressive disease after ng latency period. So yung mechanism of injury because of this one is sometimes they remain unknown. So halos wala pang explanation for this one. And then last is cellular proliferation. Sa cellular proliferation na to, dumadami yung virus. Kapag dumami yung virus na to, minsan nagkakos sila ng cancer formation. Diba nabanggit kanina doon sa neoplasm na if there's a proliferation in cell, usually nagiging cancerous yun. So viruses are prone to production ng cancer cells. Next, bacteria naman. Sa mechanism of how the bacteria induced an injury sa host. One is adhesins, next endotoxin, superantigens, and then exotoxins. So yung bacterial damage to host tissues, nagdedepende yan sa ability ng bacteria na mag-adhere or kumapit doon sa host cell or kung paano siya mag-deliver ng toxin. So, it is important to gene encoding adherent proteins and toxins are usually co-regulated by specific environmental signal. Move on na tayo sa bacterial adhesins. So sa bacterial adhesins, they are molecules na nagbabind. So pag nagbind yung molecules na to, atong adhesin na to sa host cell, they tend to destroy the cell itself. Kaya nagkakaroon ng bacterial injury doon. Induced injury doon. Kasi they tend to destroy the cell itself na eh. Once na nag-attach na itong si adhesins. Another one, si bacterial endotoxin naman. So, si bacterial endotoxin, Si bacterial endotoxin, ito ay mga lipopolysaccharides or LPS. So, it is a part nung cell wall nung mga gram-negative bacteria. So, yung mga gram-negative bacteria na to, meron silang LPS. So, they are capable of producing injury to the cell. Yung mga endotoxin na to. So, they become toxic and then nagkakaroon ng cell necrosis. Bacterial superantigens, example nito yung mga enterotoxin ng Staphylococcus which causes fever, shock, and multiple organ failures. So, itong mga superantigens na to, they are microbial proteins. Itong mga bacterial proteins or microbial proteins na to, they have the capability to stimulate yung production ng mga CD4 or CD4 T cells. So kapag nagkaroon ng increase ng number ng production nito, just like sa viruses, sisirain niya lang din yung host cell. Almost same mechanism doon sa virus. And then, lastly, si bacterial exotoxins. Example dito, si Bacillus anthracis o sa anthrax. So, nagpo-produce ng mga to ng mga exotoxins na these exotoxins directly cause damage doon sa cell mismo. Just like doon sa bacterial adhesins. So, huwag natin kalimutan to, si adhesins, endotoxins, superantigens, and exotoxins. Lastly, sa inflammatory response naman tayo, kung paano nagre-respond yung body from the invasion ng mga pathogens. So, pinakauna dyan, of course, is inflammation, which was discussed sa inyo yesterday. So, there are types of inflammatory response na nangyayari during a invasion of pathogens. First is suppurative or purulent. Pag sabing suppurative or purulent is they have the capability to produce pus or abscesses. So, yung neutrophils, usually ito sa mga acute cases, mataas yung number ng neutrophils. So, they are attached sa site of infection. So, after that, kapag nag-attach sila doon, natitrigger yung production ng pus. So, sila ay pyogenic bacteria. Pag sinabi yung pyogenic, they are capable of producing pus. So, mostly ng mga bacteria na to is yung mga nagkakos ng pimples. For example, si Staphylococcus. So, mga gram-positive cocci and rods. Nakikita natin itong mga to. Ay, gram-negative rods, rather. Yung mga nagkakos ng mga production ng pus. So, suppurative inflammation yung kinakos nila. Next, mononuclear inflammation naman. Kapag sa mononuclear inflammation, they are diffuse. Pag sabing diffuse, malawak yung extent ng inflammation. So mainly ang involved dito na cells, mga lymphocytes, plasma cells, tsaka mga macrophages. Kapag ito yung mga nakita mo na, usually sa mga chronic infections na to. So all chronic inflammations, nagkakaroon ng mononuclear inflammation. If ever man na mag-occur sila sa acute, usually response din sa mga viral or sa mga intracellular na bacteria or parasites. Dito naman sa granulomatous, kapag sabing granulomatous, from the word granuloma, makita mo na yung gross lesion ng organs, kakaroon ng mga granulomatous outgrowths. So, example na dyan, si Mycobacterium tuberculosis and then si fungi. Diba sa Mycobacterium tuberculosis, kaya sasabi natin tuberculosis because they're capable of producing tubercles sa lungs. Yun, mga tubercles. Ngayon, tinatawag natin siyang granulomatous inflammation because of that, dun sa mga outgrowths na yun. And another sa mga fungi, fungal infection, kapag nakita na kayo ng chicken na infected ng Aspergillus, yung lang sila nagfo-form din ng mga granuloma or tubercles doon sa kanilang lungs. So yun ay granulomatous inflammation, grossly. Pero kapag microscopically, makita nating cell doon ay mononuclear cells. Mga plasma cell, macrophages, lymphocyte. Next, necrotizing inflammation. From the word necrotizing or necrotize, the cells are patay na. So, since necrotic na yung cells or yung tissue, wala na silang function. So, nakikita natin to sa mga example dito si Clostridium perfringens and yung mga ibang bacteria na nagkakos ng toxin. So, irreversible na yung damage dito kasi severe na usually. Cytopathic, cytoproliferative inflammation naman, usually they are produced by viruses. So, characterized sila ng damage by individual cells. So, focal damage lang tong mga to, hindi siya yung unlike nung sa granulomatous na diffuse. Ito ay focal. Pag sabing focal, localized inflammation. Chronic inflammation naman, alam na natin yan. So, chronic, masasabi natin chronic inflammation if more than 2 weeks na. 2 weeks or months yung occurrence. Kapag acute kasi siya is very rapid. So, ibig sabihin, daily lang nangyari. So, ito yung pinaka-final or pinaka-common pathway ng lahat ng infection kapag nagtagal. So, it may either lead to or complicate healing. So, nagpo-produce ngayon siya ng scarring or extensive scarring. Yun yung tinatawag natin na fibrosis. So, if nagkaroon ng gross lesion na fibrosis dun sa isang organ, ibig sabihin chronic inflammation na yun. Yan. Sabihin nyo guys kung mabilis ha. So, last topic for this morning is yung necropsy protocol. Sa necropsy protocol, very madali lang to. Kasi nagawa nyo na to noon. Hmm. Necropsy protocol. Ayan. Necropsy protocol. So, kung nakapag-necropsy na kayo dati, madali na lang tong intindihin. Ano? Si necropsy protocol, usually ginagawa siya sa general patho. So, necropsy, madaling mag-necropsy, pero yung mag-describe ng organ, mahirap. Morphologically, grossly, and microscopically. Tapos, minsan kasi, hiwa lang tayo ng hiwa, but not knowing na merong step-by-step process siya para magkaroon tayo ng systematic na pag-describe or systematic na pag-examine ng mga organs. Hindi lang siya basta-basta hiwa ng hiwa. So, dito na nagpo-fall off si protocol natin. So, this is just an outline or an overview. Wait lang. So, pinaka-first na gagawin dyan is yung si external examination. So, very common. Pag sabi external examination, wala tayong gagawin. Sa kanya, titignan lang natin, observation by our naked eye. So, involved dyan si signalment, ilang taon na yung aso, breed ng dog, and etc. Doon sa external physical exam, sabi ko wala tayong gagawin. Just observe lang, titignan lang natin yung limbs, foot pads, yung orifices, skin symmetry, presence of masses, and all. Pakiramdaman, wala pa tayong gagawing incision. So, ito yung pinaka-first na gagawin sa external examination. Pwede mo siyang gawin as distant, pwede rin sense of touch. Next is the reflecting of the limbs. So, dito sa reflecting of the limbs, dito na tayo magkakaroon ng primary incision. So, saan nga ba ang dapat na primary incision? Before, ang alam natin, ang primary incision is sa may throat, down to the linea alba, hanggang sa may inguinal area. But no, it's wrong. Sa primary incision, ang pinaka-first na incision talaga, basically sa lahat ng species, is sa may medial to left elbow. Doon sa area na yon. Yung skin na yon, doon ang pinaka-first na incision. Doon between ng shoulder at saka ng thoracic wall. So after that, pag medyo na-severe mo na yung limb, yung paa doon sa part ng between the shoulder and thoracic wall, i-reflect mo yung limbs dorsally. Pag sinabing reflect is, ano ba? Para mo siyang isi-skin. Tutuklapin mo siya pa dorsal. Yan. After reflecting of the limb, mag-start ka na mag-skin. Yung skinning mo is an extension of your primary incision. So, extend mo yung primary incision papunta sa ventral midline, just follow the linea alba pababa hanggang sa may inguinal region. Then after that, kapag na incise mo na, you start skinning. After skinning, natanggal mo na yung skin, you reflect the skin again laterally or dorsally. Pang-apat, yung examining of the organs in situ. So, before mo examine yun, kapag na-reflect mo yung skin, you have to look for bruises. You have to look for hemorrhages, for bruises, for masses. Kapain mo yung skin, underneath the skin, kung merong mass doon. Kung may mga hemorrhages, what else? If there are wounds, trauma, ano pa ba? Whatever that is abnormal that you can see after the skinning, you have to note it down. The fourth process is the examination of the organs in situ. Pag sinabing in situ, wala kang gagawin. Titignan mo lang, pagka-open mo ng abdominal cavity or thoracic cavity, just look at it, yung orientation ng mga organs. Titignan mo muna yung exposed viscera, kung merong displacement ng organs, if there is accumulation of fluid, if there is hemorrhage, huwag mong gagalawin. So, yun ang tinatawag nating examination of organs in situ. And then after that, after you examine the organs in situ and after you note the observations, dun ka palang magsa-start mag-remove ng organs. So, ang pinaka-first na organs na alisin mo is yung organs from the gastrointestinal tract. So, may mga optional na gagawin dito, just like yung placement of ng ligatures or sutures. Ako, ginagawa ko to avoid yung spillage. Kasi pag na-spill mo siya, makakontaminate yung other organs, pangit na yung kakalabasan. Hindi mo alam kung yung blood ba is galing doon sa organ mismo or galing sa GIT. So, you have to place ligatures. And then after ng placement of ligature, i-remove mo na yung GIT organs. After sa GIT, si thoracic organs. And then the next, urogenital tract. So from the thoracic organ, ganun ulit. Examine the gross before ka mag-incise. Examine muna pa isa-isa yung placement, kung may displacement ba or wala, may hemorrhage or wala. And then the next, removal of urogenital tract. Sa urogenital tract, yung mga may urogenital problems, remove yung intact urogenital tract mismo before mo buksan yung, after pagka-open mo ng pelvic cavity, alisin mo na agad yung mga organs kapag may problem. Kapag walang problem naman, wag mo na i-open yung pelvic cavity. And then, opening the joints, hip and shoulder, removal of the head, and then examination of the carcass, examination of the plaque. So, pag plaque, mga tonsils, tongue, pharynx, and larynx, lahat ng organs na involved doon. And then examination of the heart and lungs, examination of the liver, pancreas, and the stomach. Hindi siya kasali doon sa GIT kanina. And then examination of the spleen. Pag nag-exam tayo ng spleen, mag-start tayo sa serosal surfaces. And then, kasali na dito si omentum tsaka si omental sac. And then, ito, surfaces, examination of the urogenital organs, examine the surface. Doon naman sa femur and bone marrow, examine mo yung, from doon sa niretract mo dorsally kanina, ganun din ang gagawin mo sa limbs. Doon sa may hind limb, doon ka naman mag-cut sa may hip joint. And then, titignan mo yung joints doon. Tapos titignan mo yung femur. Sometimes you have to break yung bone para makita mo yung bone marrow. And then lastly, na-examine mo is the brain. Yun ang pinaka-last na ina-examine natin. Before mo examine yung brain, ang una i-remove mo is the skin and the muscles of the frontals, parietals, and the occipital bones. So, sa examination ng organs from each system, si cardiovascular ang pinakauna. That includes the pericardial and epicardial surfaces. And then after that, you start incising and then examine inside the heart. Pulmonary, start from the pharynx, the trachea, and then examine the thyroid gland, and larynx, bronchi, up to the lungs. Ang first ulit nito is gross examination. Wala mo ng incision. After mo ma-examine isa-isa, dun ka palang mag-i-incise. And then third one, alimentary tract. So yung incision sa stomach, duodenum hanggang sa rectum. Gallbladder, you have to remove the gallbladder. Yung sa small intestine naman, kailangan mong alisin yung mesentery before examining it. Para maano mo yung buong extent ng small intestine. And then lymph nodes and then lymphatic vessels. Musculoskeletal, sa bones, tingnan mo yung size, yung shape and the strength. Joints, yung mga surfaces, tsaka joint capsules. Yung mga joint cavity, sa mga costochondral junctions. And then examination of the whole exposed carcass mismo. Titignan mo kung if there are wounds, hemorrhages, tumors, etc. Integumentary system. So hair coat, parasites. Titignan mo yung hair coat niya kung anong texture, soft, coarse, if there are ectoparasites. And then the body orifices, if there are discharges, anong itsura ng discharges, anong consistency ng mga discharges. Kasali sa integumentary pala yung mammary gland. So you have to examine the mammary gland while examining yung integumentary system. And then urogenital. Tapos, pinaka-last again is synervus. Synervus system is open skull, so you have to expose the brain. You have to use a saw. And then, after exposing yung brain, remove the meninges, peel it off, and then cut the cranial nerves and the pituitary stalk. And then after that, you will have to examine the brain. Tingnan mo muna yung symmetry, kung pantay, may hypoplastic ba, hypoplasia ng isang side, or hyperplasia ng isang side. If there are hemorrhages, intact ba yung bones and the skin? And if there are presence of cloudiness doon sa meninges, kasi sign yun ng inflammation. And then exudation. Exudation, yung mga presence ng fluids. Usually mga yellow, red, depende kung ano ang exudate, kung blood ba siya, protein, etc. So that ends my lecture for this morning. So if you have other questions, you may send it to Dr. Eugene kasi hindi ko ma-entertain yung mga question as of